And we are live. Hey guys, this is Ruben from Dubb's podcast, Connection Loop. And I am here with Julie, and we're going to get into a topic that I think, just generally speaking, more companies need to be thinking about. Julie, please first start with a bio, and then let's get into this.
Sure. So, my name is Julie Turney. I am from the beautiful island of Barbados. I've been in
Ooh.
human resources for the last 15 years, and I focus mainly on helping organizations to create people first cultures. But I'm also an HR for HR coach. So, help HR professionals also to be great at what they do, lean in and lead with purpose. I'm also a podcaster. I have a show called HR Sound Off, and I'm also the lead organizer for Disrupt HR, which is a speaking series that happens all throughout the world where we talk about innovation, culture, talent, how we can make the workplace better, and just, treat people in the workplace like human beings, having people first cultures and why that's important.
Hmm. That just seems like just the right thing to be doing, I think, in this day and age.
Yes, absolutely.
to be
Absolutely, Ruben.
to be treating people like human beings. Now, I want to clarify some. I don't like to spend too much time on the negative. However,
Mhm.
I do want to understand, and I do want to make sure that other folks understand what are some of the negative things that are happening right now with respect to treating people in a corporate environment or beyond. So,
Yeah.
what do we need to solve? What do we need to fix here?
We need to, I think ultimately, one of the major challenges that we have is that organizations don't recognize we hire people to do a job, right? We put a vacancy out, we create a job description, we go through the recruitment process, we hire Ruben and we say, Ruben, this is the job I want you to do. You get excited about it. We bring you in, and then something changes, right? We're either micromanaging you 24/7, or
Mm,
you have a situation that's happening in your life and we're not giving you the necessary time to deal with that. We're going through this COVID-19. Everyone is feeling the effects of COVID-19, and we're not dealing with how people are feeling about it psychologically or physically if they have contracted COVID-19. And all of these situations just have led to this melting pot of why we're not humanizing the workplace and we're not treating people like human beings, not
mm,
helping them to understand what the overall strategy is of the company, and then expecting them to deliver when they don't understand what they're supposed to be delivering on.
mm. That's so interesting to me. I recently saw a post on social, um, by who was it? Neil Tyson,
Mm-hmm.
and he said there was it was a really interesting quote. He said if kids are cheating in school, it's because the teachers are not engaging them in the right ways. Teaching
Mm-hmm.
them in the right ways so that they value education more than they value the grades.
Right.
And the parallel that I'm trying to make here is that there's really two perspectives of this conflict that we have. There's the conflict from the company's perspective of what is it that we can do better at, and what is it that ultimately we can do to serve the corporate needs. And of course, corporate is based on human beings. And then
Yep.
the second thing is from the employee's perspective. What if I am not being treated right? How can I raise my hand to make recommendations in my corporate environment to improve that? So, where would you say your focus lies more? I understand that you're in HR. I understand that your clients are businesses, but
Yeah.
I want to make sure in this convo that we kind of represent both parties, which
Yes.
I know you do, and I'm sure you do.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just sort of making a mental note here. So
Yes.
I'm going to start with this first question here. What are the top three things that companies need to do to get their HR environment, to get their corporate culture environment more fair?
So the top three things that we can organizations can do to help HR is number one, listen. When we speak, listen. You hired us for a reason. So when we're making recommendations, listen, even if we disagree, let's agree to disagree, and respectfully so. But let's not completely dismiss everything that is being said. If you have an HR professional who's worth their salt, they are understanding your organization, they're looking at your data, and they're giving you actionable insights to have the best talent, to create purposeful work, and to create managers or leaders in the organization who care about where we're going and how we're going forward. And I would say, so listening for me would be the top
Mm.
priority. And then, second, I would say recognize that your HR professional is a partner and that together you are going to help to create this amazing culture. And so, as you work together, then you recognize how you're building your organization. And then, third, I would say make sure holistically you are building people who feel the same way and are just as jazzed as you are. If everybody is aligned, then the organization is going to grow. You're going to keep your people engaged. You're going to boost culture. People are going to want to stay and they're going to want to work there. It all centers around how you create that feedback, how you create that purposeful culture from the ground up.
Mm. That makes a lot of sense to me. And then what about the employee's perspective? What if an employee is in an environment where they're not happy and there's a conflict? What do you recommend in that situation?
Conversations all the time. You should never know that someone is unhappy the day that they leave, the day that they resign. You should know that long before. And you should have been able to find ways to nip that in the bud from the moment the person expressed their unhappiness. I love Cloud Silver. She always says, she's always thinking about how do you ignite people? And
Mm.
from a business perspective, I think everyone, if you're in a leadership space, in the HR space, you should be thinking about how you ignite the people in your organization. No matter what level they are at, people are people. They want to know that they belong. They want to know that they have purpose. They want to know that you care about what they're doing, that what they're doing every single day means something overall to the organization. And when people don't feel that and they don't know that and they lose focus, they lose engagement. So you want to build on that by talking to people all the time. Leaders should be communicating with their people. HR should be communicating with people. Everyone should be talking so that whenever you're unhappy about something, I should be able to figure that out from the moment you're not happy and not on the day you resign.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really good feedback. I love what you said when you said that the day that someone resigns is not when you should figure out that they're unhappy,
Yeah.
and even more so that there's problems.
Yeah.
You know.
You definitely shouldn't know that on the last day when the person goes, here, I've had enough of you.
Right. And I think that, there is a win-win here in this situation. We have seen a number of examples. The founder of Gravity Payments, he's kind of famous for increasing his U.S. minimum wage for all of his employees to a very high rate, and making the spread between the lowest paid employee to the highest paid employee dramatically less than what we might see in a typical corporate environment. And what they saw as a team as a result of this was hyper amounts of productivity,
Yes.
because people felt so rewarded, and they felt like it was such a fair environment that their sales skyrocketed.
Yes.
So I think that the CEO or founders, executives that might argue, hey, listen, if we pay people more, this is going to happen. Or if we invest into that XYZ resource, that it's just going to take away from our bottom line. When in fact, there is a way that it actually increases it.
Yeah.
And that it's an investment ultimately.
Yes. I think some people fear transparency. But there is value in transparency when everything is on the table to a certain extent. But if the majority of what you're exposing is there for people to see, like I've never understood why salaries are a secret. I've never understood why we couldn't share pay scales across companies or across industries for people to understand that the pay is fair. I've never understood why there's a difference between if I live in North America versus if I live in South America, but I'm doing the same job, why the salary is different. Versus the cost of living and what it just costs for me to live on a day-to-day basis, whether I'm single or I'm a mother of 5 or 3, or I have a family of 7. Those things shouldn't matter. What matters is this is the job, this is what the job is worth, and these two should go together. And it shouldn't matter if I am who I am. It shouldn't matter if this is me versus that is you, or that is Jenny, or that is Arthur. It shouldn't matter. It is the job. This is the pay.
Now that you might get some resistance on.
I know.
And I think that, and I understand where you're coming from, but I think that there are some serious economic, one might argue that there are some economic reasons why that might happen based on, I think you said it, I think it's based on, living expenses. I think it's just based on overall sort of general stats, but I understand the essence of what you're saying. That makes sense to me. I think that there are some countries that do get more outsourcing, and for them it's might be considered insourcing, whether it's in Asia or South America, because the pay rates are maybe lower than more developed nations. And that's exactly why our Apple phones and so many of the things that we buy are not built in America, because if this phone were built in America, it would, I think there's some statistics, it would be $5,000.
Yes.
And I just went to the checkout page on Apple for an iPhone 12, and it was $1,500, and I felt a massive sticker shock when I saw that. I said, $1,500 for a phone? My computer is not that much, at all. And that was a sticker shock. So there are some economic implications, but I understand the essence of what you're saying. Yeah,
just ultimately, we need to really think about how that difference really works and how we justify it.
Yeah. Now, there's something kind of nuanced that I think about a lot, which is, this idea, we spoke about transparency, right?
Yeah.
So there is an inherent risk, at least from a perception, from an employee's perception, that if I raise my hand and I complain about X, Y, and Z within a company, that I am making myself vulnerable. I am calling someone out. I'm ridiculing someone. I'm basically not being a team player, and I'm not, quote unquote, going with the flow. The reason I suppose that a lot of people do not raise their hand with issues is because they're afraid and they don't want to get in trouble if they do say that, hey, so and so is doing this, or we need such and such. So how do you preserve the culture, the camaraderie, the trust in an environment that does actually have that transparency that you speak of?
So there are a couple things that could think of here, and one of them is trust. So over time, how we communicate messages is very important. Do you communicate messages organizational wide? And if you do that, how do you communicate those messages? Or do you communicate in a way that is individual? Like, do I get my managers to communicate it? Do I make sure all of the leaders are on the same page? And then I say, okay, all of my leaders are on the same page, and we're going to funnel this message down. Then I know each team has received the same message, and then we put something out in the public. People go, okay, well, we already knew this already because Ruben's such a great leader. He already told me that, and Julie already told me. It depends on the kind of culture that you're building for your organization. But I say conversation is key wherever, no matter what. Whenever change is being implemented, it should be communicated. Whenever people are upset, they should have a channel, someone that they can go to have that conversation with. If it's their immediate manager, you need to create that psychological safety to say, hey, Ruben, if you're not happy about anything, please come tell me, and let's see if we can figure it out. If it's bigger than me, I will support you. I'll have your back. And people should feel that no matter what. When people don't feel that, then this is where we have issues. And so we lose that trust. But trust is key in order for people to feel like they are belong, or that they're being heard, or
Yeah.
they're being respected. That doesn't happen if the conversations don't flow and we don't give people the psychological safety that they need to do that or be that.
Yeah, that's well said. I mean, one of the things that I really think about is this idea of a common goal.
Yes.
You know, in a team, when we all share a common goal, which is a whole nother conversation about how people are compensated. You know, people in marketing are compensated this way, and people in, operations like this, and people in sales through commissions and whatnot. But I think that having a common goal, I think what it does is that it sets a preface for conversations, so that those types of uncomfortable conversations can be had. You know, hey boss, listen, I really think that if we were to do this, if we were to get free kombucha every day to our homes, that we would increase our productivity by 10%. And that would be 100x investment and ROI. I think we should do it. If that's the sell,
Yeah.
and if you're going with that common goal, then you might have a stance. Now, I'm not saying that applies to everything. In some situations, it doesn't. But
No.
I do know this, that happiness and mental health are two things that are not on KPIs, and they're not on metrics. There's no chart. The CFO doesn't log in and see, where is our employee happiness and how does that connect to our revenue. But I think you, Julie, are here to evangelize that to the world, that actually happiness is good for everyone.
Absolutely. And recognizing and respecting people's mental health. Like, we all have mental health, right? What we may not all have is mental illness, but we all have mental health, and how we deal with that is key to how we have successful organizations. Because when people are happier, they create more, they innovate more, they're less absent from work, they get stuff done. When we recognize that people have issues that are not being dealt with, and this whole thing of only bring your work self to work doesn't work. So, like, if you've ever been told, look, keep your situations at the door. When you come in here, you do this, right? You're asking people to leave half of themselves at the door, or maybe even 3/4 of themselves at the door. It's impossible. Impossible. And how do you expect productivity? How do you expect growth? You can't. But when you give people that safe space, and then you say, okay, and I'm going to help you figure this out with whatever program I put in place to give you the necessary outlets to be successful in your personal life, then your employees are going to flourish. I believe that.
Yeah. You're so right.
Yeah.
My son right now is going through homeschooling. He's 7 years old, and he is happier than a pig in mud. He loves the fact he can wake up at different times in the morning. And, we found him an amazing overseas tutor that is magnificent, and they have a great relationship. He doesn't have to deal with the stress of going to school and then being at the cafeteria, or not liking what was packed in his lunch, and weird activities that he might not be interested in, and most of all, maybe just getting bored, because that's just another thing. That's a whole other thing. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is because one of the things that I think about, as a parent, and I sometimes I ask him, I say, hey, how long do you want to be homeschooled for? He's like, oh, as long as I can. And I said, so do you want to do high school as homeschooled? And he's like, yeah, why not? I'm enjoying it. So, I have these visions where he's like, 17 years old, and he's like in his pajamas getting homeschooled at home. And, I freak out a little bit. And the reason, there's a kind of a story with this. And the reason why I, have concerns about this, even though I think homeschooling is very beneficial, and obviously the one-to-one attention is awesome. But I think to myself, is he acquiring the soft skills? Is he acquiring the skills in order to manage himself on the playground, so that if there's an unfair environment, if something is taken away from him, if he's treated poorly, or if he wants to help someone, or if there's a bully, so on and so forth. All so many issues that we're dealing with
Yes.
in a corporate environment.
Yeah.
Is he learning those soft skills so that in life he can actually manage, right?
Right.
I think about this a lot. And I have worked with people that are exceptional at those skills. They
Mm-hmm.
just get everyone to like them. It's almost
Right.
like in their drawer next to their bed, they've got all those books that kind of
Uh-huh.
win friends and influence people. And, every day they read them and they're reminded, or they're just naturally born with a gift.
Uh-huh.
So here's my question for you. How can we improve our soft skills to work better in team environments?
Empathy. How do you build a soft skill? Like at the end of the day, it's either you can't just go and read a book and be like, oh, I'm empathetic. I c- oh, I really understand people. I get this. These are things that you have to learn. And I think it starts with understanding yourself. If I understand myself and what I want out of life, and I'm willing to share that with other people, then I'm going to put myself in a space where I give so I can receive
Hmm.
that in return, right? If I want people to respect me, then I respect other people. And I say everything with dignity and respect. My team will always tell you that. Whenever I say we're communicating a message, I would say everything with dignity and respect because that's what I want. I want people to treat me with dignity and respect. So I want to hear people and I want to actively hear people so I can repeat what they're saying so I can also feel what vibe they're giving me off. These things are very important to me, but they're things that you learn over time. What kind of leader do I want to be? Or what kind of human being do I want to be? Do I want to be a giver or do I want to be a taker? And then based on who you decide you want to be, then that's what you're going to deflect or reflect. And so for me, I think it's about taking the time to learn and understand yourself. Once you learn and understand yourself and what you want out of life, then you will give that to others and they will return it.
Hmm.
Might sound, I don't know, like to some people that might sound like that makes no sense.
I like it. It makes
But
total sense to
it's the
me.
truth, right? And I think it
Hmm.
comes down to that. When Jesus said, all the things that you want other people to do to you, you do to them also, or do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right?
Yeah, the golden rule.
Exactly. And I think that it pretty much stems from that. Know yourself and however you want to be treated, treat other people the same.
Hmm. Amazing. Well, so good. Such insightful information.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time. Where can people learn more about you?
Okay, so I am on every social media platform. Mainly LinkedIn is where I pretty much hang out on LinkedIn a lot. So you can find me there on I am Julie Turney, and everywhere else, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all I am Julie Turney. That's IAMJULIETURNEY.
Amazing, and we will share that in the notes here.
Sure,
I'll end with a quote from Rihanna, who's from the beautiful island of Barbados.
that she is.
And Barbados, a lot of people don't know this, but Barbados is where they produce the world's oldest rum. So I
Okay.
think
Yes.
that's also noteworthy. And here's the quote: "It's tougher to be vulnerable than to actually be tough." Rihanna.
Yes, that is absolutely true. But vulnerability definitely will save you a lot of heartache and pain.
Now that's a paradox.
That's the payoff.
That's the payoff.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are afraid to be vulnerable, but vulnerability really is key, especially if you want to be successful in business or you want to be successful as a leader. You want to be successful, period. Like vulnerability is key.
So good. Well, Julie, I am so grateful for your time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Ruben. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Be well, my friend.
You too.
Have fun in paradise.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too.